Hello, my name is Chris Fernandez. I'm a solutions engineer with Keysight Technologies. Today I'm just going to show a small video, a short video, just to demonstrate one of the steps to automate in using IX network and Restpy. So that's like the first step of when you're trying to automate using IX network and Restpy. So as prerequisites, we're talking about Python 3 plus versions, some type of IDI, some integrated development environment. So I'm using either PyCharm or MSV Code, um, and the Keysight module. And as you can see here, this is the first session. So this is how to create a session using Restpy. So let's go to the code. I'm going to demonstrate three ways that the session can be created. So the way number one, the step number one and case number one here is when the session already exists. The environment is a Windows application and clear configuration is called TS. So clear config, it's this value right here and it's set to true. So what I'm going to demonstrate now is this version here is where I have a currently session running on my desktop on my local host. That's the IP address here. I set it to localhost. Since it's a Windows machine, I don't need username or password because I'm not creating a session on Windows on a Linux environment. Session ID here, number set to 1. That corresponds to the session ID that's currently running here, session number 1. So, and the clear configuration is set to true. That means that if there's any configuration here in this scenario here, I'll actually going to be cleaning up, so starting from scratch. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to add some type of configuration that is running on my session here. And when this code starts, he will go in here, and since clear config is true, he's going to set everything to true. It's like hitting this blank or new button here on your screen. So let's just jump into it, and we can go from there. So first things first, I'm going to just put a breakpoint here on the session, and I'm going to start this code. So the code is going to start and I'm going to stop right here. So the only variables that I'm passing through here is localhost and session ID 1 and clear config, and then log levels and info. There's more information about sessions system if you're curious about all the other parameters that you can pass on to this in this library. So I'm going to step through the code here, and after this, we're going to expect is that it's going to be connecting to my session here on the right, and it's going to clear the configuration since I set this clear to true. So I'm going to execute that code, and as you can see here behind, it went in and connect to my local host here on the port 11009, and it got Windows was selected since it's a Windows machine. And it connected to the session, and now it's just doing some initialization, and now it's done. So I have now my IX network session here, and I set my handle here for IX network for a session IX network. There's different types of sessions. So in this IX network session here, this handle is going to be used throughout the code that you're going to move forward. So that's why we set it right in the beginning, right after the session is created. To IXNet session as IXNet work session. So using that IXNet, that handle here, you can do info, which is printing out stuff through the output file. So I'm going to step through here, and you're going to see that got created here. My session ID was already created as number 1. And since the final step here is to clean up, so in my case here, the session was already open, so I don't want to close the session. So all I need to do now is set this IXNet to new config. So if the automation worked and there was stuff in here, the new config does exactly what the clear config does and kind of clears up everything. So it clears up everything and disconnects from the session. So now I'm set the session to none. So I'm kind of initializing for the next case. So case number 2 is that session is already running now. So I'm running on a Linux environment, and I'm running actually on my chassis itself. So I'm going to close this out here, And for this session here, we're going to be creating a session to a IX Network web edition that is actually running on the chassis itself. So this is my chassis, this is my IX Network web edition. So this is the IP address here. You can see here, 10.2. It's the same as my chassis IP address. And since this is a Linux machine, I do have to use username and password for you to, in order for me to authenticate my session and be able to initialize a session here. And session ID in my case here set to none because I'm actually going to create a new session. And the log level and the file name is as follows: info and output. I can put here debug as well, but in my case here is just info. So let me go step through this code here, and you're going to see that as soon as this code starts, we're going to see that a new session is going to be starting over here on my network, on my IX Network web edition. So as soon as it comes back up, you're going to see that a new session got established here on the left. You can see that what is happening, and it's creating a new session. There was none open before. So as soon as my windows come back here, I should be able to see that. So the session was created, and I have the user information here, and you can see here session ID 1 was created. So and then I can go through step to the code and says session ID 1 was created here. And then since this is a new session, I created a session that wasn't there, and anything I do here now, I need to actually remove the session. So this is a way to remove the session. So it's a session remove, and that will remove the session that was created on my chassis. So I'm going to step to the code, and you're going to see that now the session is stopping and got created, so got deleted. So the last example here I'm going to show is going to be based on Windows Server. So I have here is something called Connection Manager, which runs usually on a Windows Server. So if you have a Windows Server that is that's used in the lab, for example, and you want to connect to it, so that's what I'm doing here. So the IP address is my my Windows server here that's running this Connection Manager. And as Windows, you don't need username and password, and the session ID is none since I need to create one. And when I fire this out, it's what it's going to do. It's actually going to create a new remote session for my specific port. So if there's 4 usernames here that were not being used, so it's going to initialize that session right here. Going to give it a unique port number, and that's going to be the session that I'm going to be using throughout my automation here. So as soon as it comes back out, it takes a little bit longer because it's actually spinning off a new remote desktop, completely new remote desktop for IX user 1 here, and kind of and then initializing IX Network API server on that session. So it takes a little bit longer. As you can see here, it's running through this spaces here. But as soon as it creates, you're going to see that this IX Network session here was created for it. You're going to see that really quick here. As soon as it comes back up, you're going to see, you're going to be able to see the session ID. And then we're going to be able to see here, see session 821. So we're going to go back to the code here, and it's still waiting for it now. It came back, and then you can see session ID here. You can see my session ID 821. So same thing as I did on the Linux machine. Since the session was created, wasn't there before, I usually have to do session remove. So I get off the system when it's clean. So that's it. And then after the remove, it's going to be the next step. It's going to clean up. So as you can see here, it's stopping, and it's going to be able to clean up the session. Anyway, this is all I wanted to cover this session. It went longer than I really anticipated, but I wanted to show the 3 methods or 3 ways of creating a session in IX Network using REST API. For more information and more examples on how to do things and more sample examples, you can actually go into openixia.com. And there's a bunch of sample scripts here on the REST API. And then you can see in the sample scripts, and you can get a lot more in-depth examples of how to automate. All right, thank you. Bye.